Hi, Mark. Thanks for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mark Garling-Spychala. I'm a meteorologist for the Department of Energy, working on an air quality and storm interaction campaign in Houston, Texas.
Wow. Maybe you could tell me a little bit more about that. Uh,
Sure.
does storms help our air quality or hurt it?
Well, it's more about investigating the other way around. So right now we're looking at sort of the trace gases that are emitted by a lot of the petrochemical plants in Houston. It's one of the cities that has a big problem with air pollution. And the investigation is sort of it's run by a group called ARM, Atmospheric Radiation Measurement Facility, which is facilitated by 9 of the national labs across the US. And the investigation is focused on whether those particulates or trace elemental gases are impacting summertime convection. So storms that roll in, are they impeded by chemicals or particulates in the air, or are they, given a boost by those particulates? Some people think, oh, there's a nucleation point when you have a lot of particulate matter that probably helps clouds to form. A pretty good thought, but we need to collect more data. Always more data.
Is there from a meteorology standpoint, is there like a sister city to Houston that you're using as like a comparison?
So what's cool about ARM is that they operate mobile facilities. So I'm actually standing in one of, 7 containers that we have right here at the LaPorte Airport. And each of them has instruments in them that do different things. But these facilities can go internationally. They'll be moved around and around to study different aspects of cloud formation, basically. Understanding atmospheric constituents and how they interact. The next place I'll go after this, at the end of November, we pack up and we'll go out to San Diego to study some marine boundary interactions and how some of those atmospheric conditions play out over the course of the next 14 months after that. Before this site was here, it was in Norway, up in the northern islands of Norway. I wasn't on that trip, but one of my coworkers was, and he kind of wants to go back. So the neat thing about ARM and the DOE and the national lab system is that we can go anywhere. Hopefully, one day the moon.
That would be interesting. Have you always been interested in weather?
Oh yeah, from a very young age. In fact, it was funny when I went to do my undergrad at Valparaiso University. I started in physics, and I realized that it was very theoretical, and I wanted something more tangible, more observable in my studies. And one of my advisors in the physics program did a lot of atmospheric chemistry and atmospheric physics, and so we started launching weather balloons. And I still launch weather balloons to this day. In fact, I'll be working on a project with him in June for this very project. He's coming down as a collaborator to study ozone in Houston during this whole campaign. So the Tracer campaign, as it's called, has something like 25 to 30 sub investigations that are associated with this big suite of data that we have being collected 24/7 here.
That's amazing. I know Mark Vandenheim, the astronaut that's on the International Space Station, that's broken the U.S. record for number of days in space consecutively. says that the first thing he plans to do is go outside and enjoy the weather. So he's definitely starving for weather at this point, I think.
Yes, I think it's interesting. One reason I love meteorology is that it's a new thing every day. It's always changing. The environment is always changing. That is certainly not true on the ISS. And when you start to look at interplanetary or planetary atmospheres, or atmospheres around different bodies in our solar system, it's really fascinating to think about what we'll discover next with some of those systems. I know there are people that are working on that sort of science, and it's fascinating to think about what we'll discover.
And then even artificially, I hear like the vehicle assembly building in Kennedy is so big, it sort of has its own weather.
I've heard that clouds can form in there, which is really neat. It's neat to think about that scale, considering I'm standing a container away from a system that takes in gases that are sampled here and condenses it down and makes a tiny little cloud and counts how many particles are in that cloud and then moves on. And so it's interesting to think about scaling. I always have found that fascinating. When you figure out a problem on one scale and then change it to another, things can change so rapidly. So that sort of investigation, that part of science is so fascinating. I think one of the cool things about our return to the moon, or our goal to return to the moon, is that sometimes the simplest and most elegant solutions are found in the face of our greatest challenges. We set ourselves these amazing goals and find ourselves up against little roadblocks, and the innovative minds that are at work find really creative solutions. I was thinking about Velcro this morning. It wasn't really taking off. This Swiss hunter inventor kind of discovered that burrs were sticking to his clothes and everything, and he was kind of showing it around to people, put a patent in or whatever. And it wasn't until the aerospace industry picked it up that it really found a place, a really useful place. And I think that's a really good way to highlight, what are the sort of simple, elegant solutions that we'll come up with next, in this next great effort. It's really awesome to think that NASA is, in a way, a sort of like a patron of that sort of innovation and the ability to be able to spend time working on these great big challenges.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You mentioned going back to the moon. Do you remember how and when you found out about it?
I don't actually, which is kind of wild. I will say that I think I've always assumed that it was going to happen, just because I wasn't alive the last time we were on the moon, and I couldn't believe that the spirit wasn't there. Continuing, I always look at the videos, I listen to the recordings and things like that. I think that spirit must be alive in all of us, right? And so I've sort of lived in this fantasy land that we're always working towards getting back to the moon. So I think maybe I was more surprised to discover that it was officially a goal than anything else. I sort of, maybe I read too much science fiction, but expected that someone somewhere was working on, building a lab for the lunar surface.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of amazing to think that it's been so long. Would you believe that out of like the non-space people I talk to, about only 20% of them know that we're going to the moon? And I was wondering if that kind of fits in with your expectation, or did you feel like the number would be higher or lower?
20%. That's pretty high. I would expect that I so only 20% no. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, okay, so that's pretty surprising. I would expect probably half the people I would talk to would know that that's a goal. I'm I'm surprised. But that said, I work in the sciences and I generally hang out with people that I work with, so I kind of expect some sort of plugging into at least some newsletter or something like that that would mention it. Uh, but I don't know. That is surprisingly low number of people that would know. But now I'm going to survey all my family and see what they think.
I know it'd be interesting to see if you're able to replicate my results.
Yeah. I will. Well, I'll put a Twitter poll up and see what my 15 followers say.
Now, I've gotten responses from a lot of people when I tell them we're going to the moon, and they range from, "Oh wow, that's exciting." I thought we'd never left. I thought that's what NASA was doing. To why are we doing that? We have these other problems. Why aren't we using these resources for these other problems? We've messed up the Earth. Why are we going to mess up the moon too? That's kind of one of the more memorable responses.
Sure, that's popular. Yeah.
And we've already been to the moon. Why are we going back? Which I love to give the Disneyland rebuttal. You've been to Disney World. Why are you going back?
Sure.
But I was wondering, where do you stand on this, and like, how do you talk to people about it?
Well, I think my gut response is NASA spends a lot of money on a lot of important things, and a lot of them are related to the Earth. I like to point out to people that NASA facilitates a lot of the satellites that look back at the Earth and tell us a lot about it. The one that comes to mind immediately is the Tropomi satellite, which is the tropospheric ozone monitoring instrument aboard. I don't remember the name of the actual satellite, but that's a huge deal, and it just launched. Last year it went through all its validation and everything, and so I like to highlight that for people. NASA is doing a lot of really important stuff just to make sure that we can keep on top of the effects that we are having on the Earth, or how the Earth is changing naturally too. So that argument aside, I think it all goes back to what I was saying earlier about finding elegant solutions to everyday problems or big challenges that we face in the efforts to conquer such a mission as going to the moon, or returning to the moon rather. I think that goal, that challenge, will give rise to solutions in other areas that we don't know we're going to find a solution there. I think there are big problems that we face, but I think expanding the areas of research in every direction as much as we can, casting a wide net, so to speak, will bring up a lot of really interesting results.
So let me run this by you. Do we explore so that we innovate, or do we innovate so that we can explore?
Yes.
Yes.
No, I think exploration for the sake of the innovation that comes along with it is a phenomenal goal. But we couldn't really. So let's talk about it in terms of traveling the seas, right? And how the explorers at the advent of seaworthy ships were sort of flying with the best instruments they had, which were the stars, right? And that really, like, locating yourself on the Earth and navigating was really difficult until the watch came along, right? Davis Sobel wrote a really good book called Latitude, sort of about this whole idea, right? Where these explorers were going out, and before even there were native tribes in Polynesia that were exploring, just going out to find, new solutions, new sources of food, new crops, stuff like that. They were discovering these things as they explored, right? But it brought innovation along with it, and along for the ride. So yes, to some degree, you need to innovate in order to explore, right? So you come up with the watch rather than the hourglass or the sundial, right? Sundial doesn't work on the ship deck because it doesn't stay in one place, right? So you come up with a watch, and that helps you navigate the latitudes. But I think they go hand in hand. I think it's one and the same. Innovation and exploration. I think they must be bedmates. They cannot be separate.
Maybe they're all a result of a curious mind.
Yeah, and I think when I choose the one word to describe myself, curious is it. And I don't know if it's an addled mind as well, but curiosity is the key to finding these sort of solutions. And I think that is a good word. Sort of how do I facilitate my exploration? Well, just answering that question leads to innovation, and vice versa.
If it was safe and affordable, would you take a trip to space?
Oh, I would. Yeah, and my wife knows this, and she's very afraid of that fact. Yeah, she often tells me that she's very glad I'm not an astronaut. I joke about the atmospheric radiation mobile or measurement facility going to the moon, and she does not like that joke. She's a little bit more wary of space travel than me, but yeah, I think that's part of the beauty of the commercialization of the space industry is that we've seen that you can reproduce really good, successful missions over and over and over again. That's building confidence, I think, for most people in the viability of space travel.
Oh, when you find out a working argument with your wife, let me know too. I could use it.
Sure thing. Yeah, I definitely will. I'll spread the word, and then there will be partners across the globe that are furious with me.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. I feel like we probably could talk a lot longer, but I know you're at work.
Sure.
I just want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely feel free to reach out again anytime. Happy to chat, and I'm in town, so it makes it easy too. But yeah, keep in touch, and I'll let you know where the mobile facility is going next.
That'd be awesome. Well, you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
So long.